Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I will be airing an old episode today, but it is one that has touched a lot of people, and I didn't realize how important these can be sometimes until I did this one, and it didn't become important until the person I interviewed passed away. That was my old track coach, one of my mentors, Mr. Hentges, affectionately known as H to most of us. Um, you don't know obviously no one knows what's going to happen. And when I went to the funeral home and talked to his family, they all were very glad that I did this podcast with him. They're able to hear his voice whenever they want now on this hour episode at least. And I didn't think about things like that. And it hit me that, I mean, all these episodes could be important to somebody at some point. It could be because of the person, because of the subject we're talking about, because of me. They all have importance. So, but this one is important to me now. I'm reiterating it so people can listen. It was a great conversation. It was great to talk to my mentor and talk about coaching and teaching and hear his insights, to sit down with him. When you're an 18-year-old kid, senior in high school, you don't think about stuff like that. And now 20 years later, almost 20 years later, it's a different meaning and it's a different feeling. And you think, I mean, everyone thinks, hey, I'll be able to see him all the time, or I'll be able to see this person all the time. And it might not always be someone passing away, but it might be for other reasons that you can't see that person anymore. And it's difficult. And my brother passed away about a year and a half ago now. And every once in a while, something happens like, oh man, I should tell my brother, and I can't. And you don't think about that kind of stuff. Even today, my sister bought my nephew some really bright yellow tennis shoes. I think he'll be 2. And she made a comment, or she posted on my brother's Facebook page, like, you would have really liked these shoes, because that's how he was. Like, he would really like them. And it would have been fun to see him, see my nephew, and see my brother together. But we can't make that happen. So hopefully episodes like this, and hopefully the Hentges family can enjoy this for years to come. H passed away from pancreatic cancer, and I will have a link in the notes for anyone who wants to join or wants to donate to Hentges Heroes. There'll be a link in the show notes and in posts and stuff that I make. But enjoy this episode. If there's other episodes you would like to hear again, please, I want to know what's important to you guys. So this was important to me to put it out again, and for the family and for anybody else who knew H. So thank you. Thanks for downloading this episode, and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Hentges. I'm a teacher at Perrysburg and a track coach at Perrysburg, too. And this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
So professional. That was the most professional I've had, I think, so far.
I listened to a few podcasts.
Oh, have you? Oh, no. Well, thank you. I've been getting that more and more, which makes me feel like people are starting to pick it up a little bit, which is good. I like doing this. Otherwise, otherwise I wouldn't be here in this freezing garage. So thanks for coming out.
Oh, my pleasure.
We've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
You were my track coach when I was in high school, and
we won't talk about how long ago that was.
And you're still a track coach.
I'm still a track coach.
But your role kind of expanded a little bit, because when I was in high school, it was just the track team, and Mr. Keel was the head coach.
Right.
But now it's split.
Yes.
And
after Vern stepped down, we'll say that, they decided to go with splitting it into the boys and girls. So I'm the boys head coach. And we had a choice of being completely separate teams, So the boys would have a head coach and 2 assistants. Girls would have a head coach and 2 assistants, and then they would, we'd have to split everything between 3 coaches.
Okay.
So we talked about it. We decided, what we want to do is have a boys team and a girls team, but still do the coaching of both sexes for each of the specific things.
Okay,
So, otherwise I'd have to probably do shot and disc and distance. And then we'd have to have someone who could do sprints and hurdles, and then someone who could do all the jumps, all on the boys' side. And this way, the only teams that are split into a boys team and a girls team are the distance people.
Okay.
And that kind of makes sense because they're at such different levels and trying to do the same thing with both groups.
Mm-hmm.
You could, but it's just a little bit harder.
Do you guys go to the same invitationals, or do you guys split sometimes?
We go to the same invitationals except for one. Whitmer has the Nancy Ermy relays, and St. Francis has the night relays.
Okay.
And so that's the only time that we split
Okay.
boys and girls.
Whitmer, the junior high goes to Whitmer, and that is the worst place if there's only one shot and disc coach.
Oh,
Because
it
it's
is.
so far away.
It is incredibly far away.
I always try to tell them, like, I'm going to watch, I'll walk the disc throwers over to them. If it's girls, I'll walk the girls over there, and I'll say, I'll try to be back for your second throw, and hopefully I can get back.
Right.
Because I don't like, obviously, and you're the same way, you don't want to stay at one place.
No.
You want to be able to coach both, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it is very hard to do.
It is extremely hard to do there. Yeah.
I thought I always thought, like, man, I hate having a fence in between the shot and disc at the junior high.
But at least you can stand on the
Yeah.
fence and see both,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's ridiculous.
It is. It's crazy.
You've been coaching shot and disc your whole time. Your
Yeah.
whole time you've been a track coach, right?
Yep.
What made you get into coaching that? Did you do that in high school?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
But that was the spot that was open.
Okay.
And Vern Keel, who was the head coach for a very long time, approached me and said, like you to be on the track staff, but this is the only opening. So I said, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And I did some research. I read books, went to a couple of clinics, picked up ideas, and just have gone from there.
Yeah, and by the time I was there, it just everything seems like just so natural. You've been doing it for so long. Now you can see little things. You know?
Sure.
And especially because I know for me, when I was doing it at the junior high, it was all like real big adjustments because they're just learning it.
Right.
But once you're a junior and a senior, like you're pretty much set, and you just got to find these little tiny things.
Yeah, exactly. It's the freshmen are the ones who, well, and this year the sophomores because we missed out on last year, but the freshmen are the ones that you really have to teach up a little bit, and it's not because they haven't done that. You like when you were coaching down at the junior high, it wasn't because you weren't. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
It wasn't because you weren't teaching them right. It was just they were able to get away with a lot
Oh yeah.
because
yeah.
it's a 6-pound shot and it's a small disc, and now all of a sudden they want to be throwing at the same place they were, and so you got to teach them. Well, okay, now form really matters.
Yeah.
And because you're with the heavy weight, that's how you make the distance. It's the form and the proper procedures and the technique, and that's just trying to get them to learn that.
Yeah, and another thing is there's one coach for 35 throwers.
Right.
I think at the
right.
junior high,
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That makes it really hard too because you're trying to do as much as you can, and as you go along, and just like any sport, there's kids that just want to be out there with their friends, and there's kids that really want to be really good at this. And you coach everybody, but you got to coach them differently,
Right.
Because
Exactly.
there's
Sure.
there's some that want to go to states, and there's some that just want to
Right.
hang out.
When I would have a bunch of throwers, and again, back when we were at the junior high building, I remember just filling the field up with people like their first couple of years and just throw.
Yeah.
Just throw. And once you learn the release, now we can build off of it. But just getting them to throw and to learn the release, especially in disc, that's incredible. Now, I can't imagine doing it with 35 or 40 kids. I mean, I was doing it with 10.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah.
I started when I was a freshman. I didn't have it at my junior high, and it was so intimidating because I moved to Perrysburg. I was new. Now, granted, I had the the fall and winter to meet people, but I was new, and then I had to do this new thing I've never done before. But of all the things I did in high school, that was the most fun. Was shot specifically because I was horrible at discus, but shot and disc track was really fun, and that's why I try to tell the kids when I coach them, like, if you can get one throw out of 10 that's perfect, then you're gonna remember that one, and it feels so good.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And kids always, especially when they get to the point where they want to be the best throwers, it's kind of like, you're going to get one throw out of 6 or 7, whatever you're going to have, like at an invitational. You're going to get one throw that's perfect, and that's the one you're going to live with.
Yeah.
And then you're going to over try, and then you're going to, and do everything else. But you get that one throw, and for many kids, it's the first or second throw because they don't put themselves under that pressure. And I think that's the thing. I enjoy coaching track because I think it's one of those situations where while you're competing against everyone else on your team, you're really only competing against yourself.
Definitely.
And it's not like, and I coached soccer for years, it's not like soccer where you're competing to be one of the top 10. You just have to be the best you can. And if you're the fastest, you're the fastest. And if you're not, your goal is to get to be the fastest.
Yeah.
And so it really creates more of a sense of camaraderie and team kind of feeling than I think, the other sports, don't get me wrong. You go there and you fight for your teammates and you do whatever you can for your teammates, but it's not quite the same because there's that underlying edge of competitiveness.
Well, even in the league meets, when my senior year I came in first, and at the league meet, and I thought, hey, we won, and I got 10 points of those of whatever our points were, because even then, like, I helped the team, but it was still like I did this because you're the only one there in that circle,
Right, exactly.
And that's a lot for a lot of those events. Beside the relays, you're it.
You're it.
And you got to beat these people in order to come out on top.
And yet at the same time, you can't do it by yourself.
Correct.
You've got to.
And that's the thing too with the junior high. Sometimes they will, especially when I had a really good thrower, other throwers will come and watch and cheer him or her on. Sometimes runners will come because they hear like, oh, so-and-so's really good, you should come see them throw. And that's what's cool too, just to see not just their parents, but other kids that want to see how well they do.
I mean, which is really nice at the high school because everything is right there. The disc is 15 feet away from the track, and shot put's maybe 30 feet. And so kids can, while they're waiting for their event, they're warming up and they can watch discus or they can watch. And so it's really been cool because I think it really brings us back into that feeling of team.
Yeah.
Because they're actually seeing us. You were not off in a field somewhere. Like at Whitmer, like you said, Whitmer, it's really tough. But, you're practically in another complex than the track.
Yeah.
And the runners just aren't. They're doing their things. They're not going to come out and watch you throw at a situation like that. But at the Walt Churchill track, it's right there. You can watch the meet. My throwers can watch the meet. The runners can watch the throwers. It's just really nice.
And that's what's the same way at the junior high. It's like, oh, where are the throwers? In that corner behind the stands.
Right, exactly.
You got to go through the fence, too, to get to the discus,
Yeah. Again, at the junior high, if you had friends, they would come and see you. Here, it's like everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
And that is cool. One of my favorite things, too, whenever I threw something because it was, I like talking to all you guys in the stands. Harvey was a coach at the time too, Mr. English, and to go up there and everyone was interested. Like, what'd you throw?
Right.
And it was cool to be like, hey, I threw this or whatever. I remember it doesn't. I don't want to make it sound like it's bragging, but these are the things I try to tell people when they're in sports. You'll remember certain things. Like I remember we went to Sandusky and I won, and the one thing I remember is I don't remember what I threw, but I remember thinking, oh, my name's going to be in the book for next year.
Right.
And then we didn't go. So we went somewhere else. I was like, oh, come on. or the Fat Man relays.
Right.
Those
yeah,
were
sure.
good, too,
Yeah,
the
those are always
heavyweights.
fun.
Yeah, so track overall is, like I said, it was one of my favorite sports, and I'm really glad to be able to coaching and help you this year. Now,
Yeah, that's cool. I'm
coach at a
glad to
different
have you
level.
there. And again, like you said, you want to try to learn a little bit of everything, and
Yeah.
that's the way I think you need to be as a coach. You need to be able to be at that second set of eyes for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other day at practice, Andrea was doing starts, and so I just wandered over, and she started asking me what I saw as far as kids starting, and so I mean, it's that kind of situation. Again, I've been coaching, 30 years, I think now, and so I've picked up a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know everything, but it's one of those I know what I know what I know, and I know what I like, and if it looks good, then it's fine. But
Yeah.
I can tell what's wrong. And now can I correct it? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah,
I can tell what's wrong.
Yeah, and then that's where the other coaches come, like, hey, this doesn't look right. And then they might say, oh, yeah, it doesn't because they're doing A or B.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And there's nothing more, especially for a young coach, when I started coaching football and got on the varsity, and Coach Krieger would ask me a question about something, like, what do you think about this? And I was like, me? Like, I'm just, it's my first year. I'm just trying to learn, But you're there for a reason. Like,
and that
they
is how
want
you
to
learn, though.
Yes. Yeah, you get thrown to the fire sometimes.
Right.
Right. And they, other coaches want to see how you can handle things.
Exactly.
And that's, like you said, that's how you learn, and that's how you become a better coach.
Yes.
You can figure out these problems. They're throwing problems at you just like any other job. They're throwing problems at you, and you got to try to figure them out.
Right.
So have you been at Perrysburg your whole career?
Yeah, I mean, when I started off, I've been in the Perrysburg High School building my entire career. I started off working for Wood County
Okay.
in the high school, and then I got a math job working for Perrysburg schools. So it was about 3 years, I think, I worked for Wood County, and then I was able to move into the math position.
What makes someone love math enough to want to teach it all the time? I have zero interest in math whatsoever. It frustrates me so much.
I just like the fact that there's one answer, but many ways to get there. I think that's really, to me, that's part of it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, and there's patterns to it that I totally get. I love reading and I love writing, but I couldn't teach English because there's too many interpretations of something.
Yeah.
And whether, and I, as a teacher, have my prejudices as far as what something means, but in math, there's no, do you get to the answer? Okay. Is what you do mathematically correct? Perfect. Then, yeah. That works. It's maybe not the most efficient way. It's not, maybe the easiest way, but if you understand it, go for it.
Well, I think one thing too is numbers are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think my dad asked me why, because I do groundskeeping, and said, why do people use scientific names for plants? I go, because what we call a maple here could be called something else different in China. So if you use scientific names, they're all the same everywhere.
Right.
And people can communicate with numbers, and it's all the same, right?
Right.
But I never.
And that's fine.
Right.
That's.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I have enough to do my job when I need math. But I don't know. It was just something that I never looked forward to.
Right. Right. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I taught your younger sister.
Oh yeah, Martina.
Yeah, and I think Martina was not into high school, and she wasn't into math at that period in time. And now look at her.
Yeah.
She's done great, and she had to pick up the math, and she did a great job with it. So it's just really, kids like that are the ones that I consider to be success stories.
Yeah. So. She was exactly like me, and she should have got better grades, and so I should have got better grades than B's and C's. But it was one of those. I'm here to be here and get me through here.
Right. Give me the track practice.
Yeah. That I always think about how I got on the track team too. I think if Mr. Keel wasn't the football coach, there's no way I would have came out for track, because I had no idea what it was. And I wouldn't have signed up for it if I didn't already have that relationship with him. And
I think that's important, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that's really important the synergy between sports. You know, how each one can help the other one.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's a perfect example of it. You know, Vern knew what you were like. He saw how strong you were, and it's like, okay, he's big, he's tall, you know, he's a thrower. Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that, and most coaches would say do as much as you can, right? Do all kinds of sports, because you use different muscles and everything. If you do the same thing year round, you know, your body's gonna break down.
right.
So, and track, I think track is good for all sports, especially for football. There's so much, especially if you're a sprinter and you also play running back.
Right. Or wide receiver and sprinting.
Yeah, if mentally, when you're running down the field, you're not going to think I need to have good form, but because you've done track, it's just in you already.
Right. Exactly. Two things. One, I think, you know, throwing helps with footwork. You know, so like an interior lineman, when you start looking at their footwork, you know, are they quick on their feet? Are they able to adjust quickly, change their weight? That's throws. And then the other thing, too, is I remember Devin Smith, Ohio State wide receiver, say he thought one of the reasons he was such an effective wide receiver was because he did high jump in high school. And so he learned how to control his body in the air and change things.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, little things like that you don't think about are, you know, again, some of the best gymnasts make the best pole vaulters because they're used to those turns and the things that you have to do for pole vault. So, you know, there's just, like I said, there's an incredible synergy between all sports, but you're right. I think track does help in many ways with the other sports.
Yeah. Do you find you have to, because I don't know how many kids you get come out for track, but do you find you have to recruit kids to get out there, or you get plenty of kids to come out for track?
Right now, on Final Forms, my roster is 108.
Boys.
And, you know, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad that many people expressed an interest in it. I really hope they don't come out.
Yeah.
Because you can't get everyone involved, you know, as part of it. And then the second thing, too, is you end up spending most of your time doing the paperwork as opposed to actually coaching and knowing the kids.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see next week, you know, how many people really are serious over the next 2 weeks, probably, because I think while we're saying next week's mandatory and we really want kids to be there, it's going to end up being kind of like, well, you know, I wasn't expecting it this week, so this is going on. And, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time for those things to shake out. And I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
You know, as a matter of fact, I had an email this morning from a parent saying that they scheduled driving hours because they didn't know their son wanted to run track.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
You know, finish up your driving hours. We'll get you when we get you, because it's not going to make, you know, the first week's not going to make that huge of a difference. And the other thing, too, is, you know, track to me is important, and I love track, and I love coaching track, and I want the team to do the best it possibly can. But, you know, in the greater scheme of life, you know, what kid's not going to want a driver's license?
Yeah.
What kid's not going to, you know, oh, wait a minute, I have to go and run 3 miles in the snow or, you know, get a driver's license. And shit, I think I know what I'm going to pick.
Yeah. You talked about how many boys you had come out. I remember when I first started coaching at Rossford Junior High with Ed Howard, we were allowed 5 coaches if we got X amount of kids to come out. I forget how many it was. So he was a good recruiter getting all these kids out, and then once we hit that number, he was like, "All right, let's see how many we can drop, see how many we can make drop." You know,
right?
Because it's the same thing. Like we can only coach
each
kid for so long, right? And if there's too many, it just lessens it for everybody.
Right, and that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to working with you this year. You know, I stand between the 2 pads, you know, and so I watch one kid throw and I turn around and I'm catching the end of someone else's throw and I didn't see what happened. And so it's just, those are the times when, you know, it's like, I just want more eyes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's and I would imagine it's just like having kids, just like when you walked in right before I left, my dad was like, "Hey, watch this." I'm sure there's a bunch of, "Hey, H, watch this. Watch this one."
Yeah. I'm going to throw really well on this one. Just watch. Oh, no. I meant the next one. Well, you know, and again, I'm not taking anything away from the sprints or whatever, but, you know, it's easy again, for sprints, it's like there's some skill things that you have to do, relays, blocks, but the most of the time it's conditioning.
Yeah.
Working on speed, and that's not, it's not really something that you're spending a lot of time examining every kid running. But when you start talking about the specialties, hurdling, long jump, high jump, pole vault, discus, shot, it's the little things that are going to make the huge difference.
Yeah.
And, so again, it's like those are the times when I think you need that extra set of eyes, which again goes back to you trying to figure out everything that you can. Or, I'll go over to talk to Matt Gossis, when he's doing hurdles or high jump, and I'll just mention, I saw this. And he's like, yeah, I think that's something that we're going to have to work on. Just little things like that. It makes the difference when you're looking at those kinds of things.
Yeah. Do you utilize any cameras or anything like that?
I'll do coach's eye every now and then. But that gets problematic too, partly because then everyone wants to, when I'm trying to work with one kid on changing something, everyone wants to be videotaped.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, as good as coach's eye is, it's not quite the same as you going over and actually kind of saying, okay, when I say lift your elbow, this is what I mean. And actually physically lifting their elbow and making sure that they feel what that's like as opposed to just seeing it.
Yeah.
But I do try to do, don't get me wrong, I'm no Eastwood. Every coach has an iPad, and everything that they do, they have on tape, and they go through it. And which, again, fine, it works for them.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's another tool. But
So it's not like everything.
right.
Yeah. Well, because you're right. Because every kid is, like you said, well, now do me,
Right,
and
right.
tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Right.
And it's I used I didn't use the coaches. I would just use my camera and I would take video and I'd show some of the kids, and I would even tell, because some of these kids I'd give a hard time, and I would say, hey, be a better thrower, and I'll be there. Oh, come on, coach.
You just got to be better today.
Yeah.
The only thing I like about Coach's Eye, and I don't get paid for this, but the only thing I like about Coach's Eye is you can draw on it.
Oh, okay.
And so, for instance, if you're talking about shot put or discus, the angle, you can actually show them where the angle is supposed to be, and then where their angle is, and the difference, and actually give them that kind of a visual.
And most kids will see more out of a video too, as opposed to like, hey, you did this. Oh, I didn't feel that. Well, trust me, you did it.
And it looked great.
Yeah.
Do it again. And, oh, okay. Well, and the other thing too is, I think you're right in that aspect, especially with two things: the tech savviness, if that's a word, the tech savviness of kids nowadays, but also the number of things on like YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on YouTube and there's 5 or 6 different people doing shot put. Shoot, 5 or 6. There's probably hundreds of people doing shot put, hundreds of people doing discus, both just the throws and also the coaching. And so I think a lot of kids are, they're used to seeing videos, they're used to learning that way. And so that kind of helps. That, I had a kid a couple of years ago who extensively used YouTube, and he and I would talk, and we would both pick up things from each other about what we should do and what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So,
was there ever any kids that you had, like, they had their own personal, like, throwing coaches? Did you ever coach anybody like that?
Early on, yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if anything like that existed around here.
Yeah, I mean, there has been that, and there right now, I know of at least 2 academies. They call themselves academies, throwing academies in the area.
Okay.
That's for the kids that are going to go to college and throw. I mean, Anthony Wayne had a girl who was a stud. She was part of the Throwers Academy. Bowling Green had a guy thrower. Napoleon had a guy thrower. They were all throwing. Well, they were playing football, and then the rest of the time they were just throwing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they knew that was where they wanted to go. That's their track to going to wherever, and so they're all throwing. Last I heard, they're all throwing like the BG kid and the Anthony Wayne girl are both throwing in Indiana.
Okay.
I forget where the kid from Napoleon's, but he's throwing somewhere too. But again, that they're not playing football.
Yeah.
The guys aren't.
Yeah.
They're throwing, and so.
Yeah, I was so new to track. Like even if and my parents too. My parents they just, hey, you're doing this, okay?
Yeah.
It's because and my parents, I think, just from being a coach, my parents were good parents as far as other coaches were concerned, because they got involved as much as I wanted them to get involved. Right. They weren't calling coaches or emailing or any of that stuff. They were there, they watched me, they congratulated me, and then then they were done, and we talked about it later. But those are the, if I don't know you, or if you come up to me and say hello and you got to say I'm so and so's son, then I think that's good.
Right.
Because then I'm coaching whoever I'm coaching right, where you don't have an issue with me.
Right.
And so you're not, you don't need to know who we are right together.
Right. To go back to the academy thing, that's the thing now. If you want to find an academy for anything,
really?
Or a private coach for anything, you can find them.
Yeah.
Quite a few of our sprinters have private coaches, that
It
work
seems
with
so
them.
weird to me.
It is, and yet at the same time, it's not weird to me, because I see that in teaching all the time.
Okay.
Again, it's part of that whole. And again, sometimes it's kids just trying to get an edge, but usually it's kids who are trying to reach that next level, and they're the ones whose parents are willing to shell out the money to get that extra coaching, that extra whatever.
Yeah.
I've had kids that have a nutritionist, a weight coach, a track coach, someone who worked with them out of the blocks, someone who worked, you name it, they, and they're running in college now, but which is great, which is fine. But those people are out there. You just have to go and find them.
Have you had or any coach at Perrysburg where there was conflicts with, like, hey, my coach wants me to do this?
Yeah.
How do you handle something like that, or how does that get handled? I would imagine it's not a easy thing to do, because their parents are paying money for this,
right? And so, and that's part of it. I was trying to figure out a diplomatic way of saying that, but no, and that is one of the things. Parents are paying for it, and so part of the, I'm not going to say assumption, but part of it is, if I'm paying for it, that's who you're going to listen to.
Yeah, or they're better.
Right, or they're better.
Yeah.
And there are times when an athlete's been told one thing and they do it, and it's like, I don't know why my times are getting slower, because I'm doing exactly what my coach told me. Well, you're not doing. Let's change it back to where I said, and let's see what happens. It's like, oh, yeah, oh, you look at everyone we have on the coaching staff, and they've all been coaching or participating in what they do for many years. Matt Gossis was a high jumper and hurdler in college. Now he's bringing that over to us, and things along those lines. So they've had the benefit of coaching, from people at a higher level. They see it. They've been through it. And I just, I like our coaches. I think they're very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And, I think if parents want to go and pay more money, that's cool. More power to you. Let's make your kid the best that they possibly can be. But, we need to work together.
And I think they need to make sure they're either getting referrals or doing research on who they're going to. Because I know that happened years ago, when being a pitching coach and catching coach for softball or baseball was a hot thing, and they'd always had to tell people, like, make sure you know who you're going to,
right? Because
you could be wasting your money of this person who doesn't know what
who really doing. Right, who just came out and said, I'm going to be a hitting coach.
Yeah. You don't know. I mean, anybody can decide to do that. Martina went to, I think she had 2 or 3 different pitching coaches, until we found one that she really liked. and that was good for her. And that was based on like, hey, my daughter goes here. I think you should go see her too.
Right.
You know, and because that is, like I said, anybody can decide they want to do that, and who knows what you're doing with that money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you're getting for your buck.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you've been at Perrysburg for a long time. You coach soccer too?
I coach boys and girls soccer. Yeah. When I first started at Perrysburg, I was coaching boys soccer, and then I switched to girls soccer. Then I coach cross country, and I've been coaching track through all of that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I was talking to Dan Thompson, and he and I both are like the last two sport coaches. Because and a lot of the younger people, a lot of the younger teachers, when we came in, one of the ideas was if you're going to teach, you're going to coach.
Okay.
Especially with males.
That was just a thing.
That was 85.
Okay.
1985, 1986. That was just one of the things. So one of the first, in my job, in my interview for Perrysburg, Carolyn Peabody came in and said, "Oh, by the way, here are the openings for coaches that we have, if you're interested." And I was like, "Yeah, I played soccer in high school, so there's assistant boys soccer coach. Yeah, sure, I'll give it a go." But that was kind of the way it was, especially for males in '85. Women's sports were just kind of taking off and becoming really more important.
Okay.
But it was it's funny now because that was the attitude, and now it's I start thinking about the coaches we have at Perrysburg and how few of them actually are teachers in the school system.
Yeah. Well, even just the football program, I think last year I think there was Coach Kriegel, Sam Cotterman, and Coach Sims. I think they were, and everyone else was outside.
Yeah.
It's and Kriegel talked about how hard it is to find coaches.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That because it's in any sport you do, it's a lot of time.
Oh, it is.
On top of what you're already doing in your family and everything. So it's tough. So did you coach soccer for a while?
I coached soccer probably for about a total of maybe 15 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you when'd you stop coaching soccer?
Oh man,
I'm trying to remember when.
It was after we'd moved to the new high school.
Oh, okay. All right. So you were a coach when I was there then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Are you coaching cross country still?
No.
Okay.
No.
Were you at Mommy for a little bit?
Rossford.
Okay.
I was at Rossford, which made me laugh because we could only have an assistant coach if we had more than 10 runners.
Oh, right.
And Perrysburg, Perrysburg's got 40 runners.
Yeah.
And I ended up, I think my last year, I think we had like 15. We barely had enough to score in a meet with the girls.
Yeah.
You need 5 runners to score. We had 5 runners. On the girls' side. And, that's one of the things I'll say about Perrysburg. People say, oh, it's just because Perrysburg's bigger. Yes and no. I think part of it is, Perrysburg cross country is huge because they've experienced success.
Yes. Yeah.
And so once you see that success, it's easier to get kids to try. Mm-hmm. And you never know who's going to be good. You just don't. And Rossford is just, this past year they had 2 kids make it to regionals, 2 guys make it to regionals, and 1 guy make it to state. And that's the first one in many, many years.
Yeah.
And so that kind of success, that people see that, hopefully will begin to bring in other people.
And that's what we found when I was at Rossford. All the coaches besides myself were in the Rossford School District, so they could recruit kids and bring kids out. And now they're not as of good of recruiters or want to do as much because they don't have hardly any kids in their junior high track team anymore.
Right.
It just seems like it dropped off big time, and it's not only is the in season coaching hard part, but you also got to do out season stuff. out of
Oh,
season
sure.
stuff too, to attract kids and even talk to kids, or like Mr. Kill did with me, just and during football season, talk to me
Yep.
about doing track, all that
You
stuff.
got to think about this, yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff is huge to the success or how far
Failure
you're
of a
gonna go.
program, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to now coaches who aren't in school.
Yes. Yep.
Like it's hard to find those coaches in school, but if they're not in school, they don't have that relationship with a kid to say, "Hey, you know what? You ought to try this. You ought to go out for this."
Yeah.
So, it's a two-edged sword, if you will, because one, you want those coaches, but at the same time, you want to make sure you have people who are good coaches.
Yeah.
And so I was able to start at I'll say at a low enough level in all the things that I coached that I was able to develop into being a good coach and being able to develop into knowing what I know and knowing what I don't know, so I could go out and figure out how to learn what I don't know.
Yeah. And going back to being in school, that's the one thing. I think I talked to Jackie Durr when she was on here after the podcast. Like when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a history teacher, and I just wasn't ready for college out of high school.
Right.
It just wasn't for me. I ended up going, I think, getting my 2-year degree like 3 or 4 years later. But anytime like I'm coaching or doing anything, same thing. Like I want to be like have that kid's ear when I'm in a school or in the building. So I do it differently. I have to. I go to their sporting events after school, or my schedule the past 7 years has been Tuesday through Saturday. So on Mondays, I would spend time in the junior high, talk to kids.
Sure.
Just because I want to be more involved.
Right.
And when I talked to the new football coach, he asked how involved I am with the kids. I go, I'm involved as much as they want me to be. If all they want to know is talk to me about football, then talk to me about football. But if they want to talk to me about their school, family life, whatever, then I'll be involved, because that's what I like. I think coaches, and I'm sure you're aware, coaches play such a pivotal role in these high school kids or junior high
Oh,
kids
yeah, for
growing
sure.
up.
Right.
They
You're another authority figure who isn't a parent, if you will. And so it's a lot easier at times, I think, for kids to talk to you about things, and just to, I'm not going to say that, how do I want to phrase this? It's easier for kids to talk to a coach about things helping themselves make a decision or feel out their feelings about what they want to say to their parents.
Yes.
I
It's like
think that's-
practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and a lot of times the coach doesn't even have to say anything. They're just listening
Right.
when they're talking about something, and then they, if they want their 2 cents, you can give it. But I learned that, well, even being married, like sometimes when my wife comes home, she has an issue. Sometimes she doesn't want me to try to fix it. She just
Right.
she just wants me to hear it.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's the same thing with kids. Like they want to. And they're also like feeling you out, seeing, hey, what can I talk to this coach
Right.
about, and
Right.
but
How
like
much
you
can
said-
I trust them?
Yeah, and it's the same
Yeah.
thing with like you said, it's trying to figure out, can I say this to an adult, and if I can say it to this adult, I can probably say it to my parents too,
Right.
and because we all know those kids are their parents and them often don't get along. 'Cause that's just
Right.
how it
Well,
is.
or it's not that, they're just scared
yeah,
of what their parents are going to say, because that's, as a coach, you can't really pull that. Well, I'm not angry.
yeah.
I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
You can't pull that, because kids look at you like, I don't really care. But with a parent, it's a whole lot different, because you don't want to let your parents down.
Yeah.
And with a coach, that, okay, I'm going to let you down maybe this throw, but I can make up for it, or this run or this whatever. Yeah, I made a mistake, but it's not going to affect our relationship, where I think, with parents, there is that, I just don't want to mess this up.
Do you have children, right?
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3
Oh, okay.
and 3 grandchildren and one more on the way.
Wow. Are they around here, or are they all scattered about?
2 of them are here. My eldest daughter, Megan, just had a baby in November. And then Rob just got married My middle son, Rob, just got married in October, and he and his wife are here in town. Nick, our baby, got married early, barely out of college.
Okay.
And he has 2 children and 1 more on the way, but they live in Berea.
Oh, okay.
So it's like an hour and a half away. So it's close enough that we can go and visit. We just went last Friday, just for the evening.
Yeah.
Which was cool. But, it's not far, but it's far enough that it's, it's not something you're just going to go,
gotta
I think I'm
plan
going
a
to drop
little bit.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just going to drop by, just stop in.
Yeah.
So
We get some stop-ins. My in-laws live 3 houses down, so
Oh.
so they my mother-in-law she says when we first moved, we've been here almost 7 years now, but she says when we first moved in that she wasn't just going to come over. And that lasted like 2 days. So,
my mom used to do that to us, too.
Yeah.
I was in the neighborhood. You live in Toledo. We're in Barrysburg. What do you mean you're in the neighborhood? But yeah.
I love having. Well, my parents live in town too, so it's awesome to have their their
Well,
kids'
and his
here.
grandparents too. That's one of the things we're talking about. Maggie and I are talking. It's like when our kids were growing up, it was teaching them to behave around their grandparents more than really teaching them how to behave around us.
Oh, okay.
You just you've got to be at a better level near your grandparents, and you have to be with us just because they're your grandparents, and that's the way it is. So
and that works 2 ways, because I know with my grandparents and my parents now, we want our kids to be really good, but my parents are so laid back that they'll just do whatever, So, but that's that's the nature of grandparents, right? That's what my dad always says. I like being a grandparent because I don't have to do anything. Like if you're gonna drop them off, I just gotta make sure they come back in one piece, and I can give them all the candy.
Exactly,
and
because once they start getting that sugar buzz going, okay, you go home.
Yeah. You said
and it's got to be nice for you too. If one of your kids is driving the other one's nuts, it's like, go down to grandma's.
Yeah.
3 doors down, just go.
Yeah.
Go hang out with grandma for a little bit, calm down, come back, whatever.
Yeah. It's good now too, because they're my son's 9 and my daughter's 6, and they can cross the street and everything now by themselves and everything. Because for a while it's, I don't know, you're 5. You're not gonna cross the street.
Right.
So we got to go and do it. But now sometimes hey, can I go over Nana Pops? I go, yeah, go ahead, and they'll just go over there and maybe be gone for 15 minutes and then come back. So it's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
You said your youngest got married early. And I always find that funny, because I got married when I was 23, and then it wasn't for, I don't know, another 6 or 7 years before someone in my group of friends got married. And I think it is a odd thing, because it doesn't happen anymore like that. But I guess, same thing for him. If you know, right?
Right. Nick and Alicia met in high school. Mm-hmm. He was a junior, she was a senior, and then Nick followed her to college. They both went to Kent State, and that, it just led to them then getting engaged and getting married pretty soon after Nick graduated from college.
Yeah. That was the one stipulation my father-in-law had when I said, hey, I'm going to ask Andrea to marry me. He goes, just wait until she graduates. I said, okay. And then he went back to watching TV.
Well, that's not all bad. He obviously had faith in you.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Is he doing all right?
He's doing good.
Good.
He has to go back. He has to get something else done next Wednesday. But yeah, he's doing good. He was in all that snow. He was out snow blowing driveways.
Yeah.
He did his, and then he was over here doing ours, and did our neighbors who are elderly. So yeah, he's out and about.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I saw all your snow forts and all your things, and
yeah, the kids. They were out yesterday. They were out from 8:30 in the morning to about lunchtime. We're in for a few hours, then went right back out until dinner.
That's cool.
And I always tell people, it doesn't matter how cold it is. They'll be out there for especially if their friends are here.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kids.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Now
it's
it's
crazy.
like, oh my God, I'm freezing.
I know. And with COVID, we made a rule. I mean, I even brought this basketball thing out here so they can be out here to play.
Right.
Because we're not going to have kids in the house. And I've said it before, but our new rule going forward is no kids are coming in the house ever. You know, just because now we're used to it, just be outside.
Yeah, sure.
If you guys want to come in here and warm up, I'll pop a heater on, but the door's going to stay open. And in the summer, you know, they can be out. There's, I think there's a couple of their friends have pools. You know, they can be out there, or whatever. But that's it just keeps our house clean.
Oh,
keeps a lot less fights because they can handle it themselves. You know, if they're in here,
Right.
If they're in here, I feel like I have to interject a little bit if
Sure.
if they're getting loud. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just so much easier to have them outside.
Right.
Plus, they're older now; they can deal with their
Yeah.
their stuff, or they try anyway. I don't know. My daughter, like I said, she's 6 and she's 2 years younger than everybody else that they play with. They have about a group of 6 or 7 friends they play with. So she's the one that we got to watch for, but she's pretty tough. She causes more problems than probably any of them. But
That's not all bad.
no.
It's not all bad.
So do you have you've been coaching, you've been teaching for a while. Do you have or have you had in the past like time where like, hey, I think this is going to be my last year on this date or whatever? Have you thought about that? Not to make you think about it.
No,
but
no.
I just didn't know if that's
Right
something
now, it's my wife kept saying kept getting angry with me because I was saying, okay, 5 years, and then the next would be 5 years, and the next would be 5 years. Right now, God willing, 2 years.
Okay. And
For many reasons, but for 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, it's one of those things where I still, Deb Drew's retiring this year, and she and I were talking the other day, and she's of mixed feelings because she still loves what she's doing, as do I.
Yeah.
But she wants to get out before she stops loving what she's doing,
Yeah.
and I totally get that. So. I think 2 years, while I still love what I'm doing, I think health-wise and everything else, 2 years is probably, going to be it.
Yeah.
But
When you're not doing math problems. And
yeah,
grading
that's what I
them
do at
and
home.
everything.
Yeah, I got a big board at home, big whiteboard on the wall. I just work out math problems.
Do you?
No, I don't.
No. This is gonna be a separate question. This is gonna be a separate. I didn't think you did math.
No, but
are
you kidding? There's a lot of people that the kids at school that are like, "What did you do over the weekend?" And I'll say, "I just did some math problems." I knew it. I was like, I don't do math problems. But
no, what do you do? What do you like to do for fun?
Read.
Yeah.
We live over. Well, I call it the inner city of Perrysburg. We live within the boundaries, so we've got a half-acre yard.
Mm-hmm.
My wife loves gardening, so in the summer, and we spend a lot of time in the garden.
You like being out there too?
Yeah.
What do you like to grow, or what do you like to eat? I guess out of there too.
Well, garden more flowers now
Okay.
than anything else, and we'll go either yard sales or estate sales, and she'll find things to put in the out in the garden, just weird things to put out in the garden, and which is fine.
Yeah.
I love it, but that's we'll spend the summers doing that, and given the chance, I would rather sit and read than watch TV or do about anything.
Is there a specific kind of books you like to read?
I'm a fiction person, but again, I'll read whatever catches my interest.
Yeah.
Recently it's been more fiction than not. But I've read autobiographies. I've read history of like the Civil War, things along those lines.
Do you get into horror stuff?
Some,
Yeah.
not much. It all depends.
My brother was not a very good student and just didn't do any type of work at all, but he loved Stephen King. Stephen King, Dean Koontz, he loved that stuff. He loved horror movies, and he would make my grandma watch them, and now she loves those movies.
That's cool.
Like any like just the worst movie, and not just like worst meaning the most blood, but just like how did this movie get made?
Right.
It's awful, But she loves that kind of stuff. But
That's cool.
I never. There was a time where I read a little bit. I got into like all the Dan Brown books. I liked all those and watching the movies and stuff. Now I have books. There's even this this woman, I went to grade school with her kids, and she's an author. She published a couple books, and I started reading one. I was like, I'm going to read this book so you can come on the podcast. I can talk to you about it. And it's good. It's just there's the time. There's
Right,
just
yeah.
no time. And I feel bad because I even like would read a chapter and then take notes so I can talk about whatever. And I got, probably a quarter of the way through the
me.
book. Yeah, quarter of the way through the book. And it's just hard to find time.
Oh, it is.
And
It is. I mean, that's one of the things in my 30 years of teaching. I've gotten to the point now where I really try to budget my time at school so I can get grading and things done. Just because, like evenings, I want to spend, if we're watching TV, I want to spend it with my wife.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend it grading. I don't want to spend it, doing other things. I just want to be able to sit and talk to her and make comments and do whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was when we had kids, and again, you're at that point, having kids, there's a lot of things pulling at you.
Yeah.
Especially if they're active, and so, we'd laugh now about our weekend, our Friday nights, when our kids were little, was spent folding clothes. Yeah. But that was the time that we would, we'd have TV on or we'd have music on and we'd fold clothes and we'd talk.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really kind of our time, and it was really cool. But that was, that was our big fun date nights. Now with COVID, our big fun date nights is still us just kind of putzing around going,
Full of
oh,
your own
okay,
clothes."
well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I just made a post about this on Facebook today. Like, someone had shared something about time, and you get up, go to work, you take your kids dinner, and you hardly have any time for yourself. And I made a point that all that's true. And for right now, my wife and I sacrifice sleep so we can have time with each other.
Yeah,
Because if we didn't, we would have about a half an hour, and then we're going to bed.
right.
But I'd rather be tired at work and be able to be with Andrea for an hour and a half.
Sure.
And because that's all you get at night.
Exactly, yeah.
It's at night. The time is at night. We put our kids to bed, and sometimes we make it fun too. I've said before, we have secret dinners where we don't eat dinner when the kids do, and then we put them to bed and we order pizza or something. So and we've done
That's
that.
perfect.
Yeah, we've done that ever since they were born. It's just
Right.
it's just something fun to make it. Then we're just watching TV, but
No,
it's-
that's I mean,
important.
that's part of what makes you need that time. And it's harder as my one son's finding out, because he's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. It's really hard at that point to create that time. When you're working and his wife Alicia's a nurse, so she works 12s.
Yeah.
Just to find that time to be with each other. And so you start really saving that and savoring that and making sure that you make it.
Yeah.
And that's the important part.
Yeah.
I think in a wedding
or
in
like
a marriage.
Or like you said, you have to find it where, like, folding clothes.
Right.
You might have to be doing something else, but that's the time.
But that's the time right. And you talk about what's happened and you talk about what we want to do the next week or whatever. And now, with no kids, it's easier to find that time, obviously. But there are times when it's just us sitting together, not saying a word.
Yes.
And it's just the
Yes.
fact that we're together.
Yes, and it's that happens quite a bit when we could be watching a movie and we have that hour and a half and we don't say one word, like you said, but we know it's just us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's important.
Yeah. All right, H. Well, I'll let you get out of here. I appreciate you coming on here.
No, anytime, Lorenzo.
We'll maybe sometime before the season really kicks off, we can talk about track. We'll have Andrea. Andrea's the other coach. Is she the other head coach, right?
Yeah. She's head girls coach, head sprint coach.
Yeah. We can talk all about track and talk about the season and what what we expect from there. So.
That'd be awesome.
All right, man. Well,
This
thank
was
you.
really cool. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, it's starting to pick up a little bit, and I've had actually people like reach out like, hey, can I come on and stuff. So I like it, and
yeah.
Most people are like you, like, hey, you want to come on, and absolutely, just let me know when. So I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on here.
No worries.
Thanks again to my guest, Jim Hentges, math teacher, head boys track coach at Perrysburg High School, for coming on the podcast today. I look forward to helping him and the rest of the varsity track team this year out at practice, helping them out and learning all I can learn about track. Thanks to Jake Paluski at Real JP Multimedia for all the music you hear and producing this podcast. Thanks to Melanie at Cuddlefish Graphics for the brand new logo. Thanks to Jackie Durr at Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for the banner and the stickers. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.